Hey everybody, this is really, really serious, and it is beholden upon the legal professionals of Britain to take this seriously and to start seriously lobbying Parliament, and it is beholden upon the British public to wake up to reality and get alert and aware. Okay? Far from Cambridge Analytica's propaganda about how Muslims and immigrants are destroying British culture, okay? Please, what is destroying British culture is this coalition government that's been in office for two successive periods now, and they are doing a total hatchet job on Britain. Britain is now a victim of corporate attack through the corporate government that represents corporate interests before our own. That is what is going on. That is the real threat. I'll leave my Brexit alert video below. Please watch it. Please get informed. It is time to get real. Get informed. As I've said, it's a waste of time standing against, having marches against the far so-called right extremists. What we need to do is have marches and demonstrations in support of, for our human rights, because that's the latest thing now, you know, that is under threat. And we do know that was the whole reason. Those of us who were on the ball and awake and aware in this society know full well the only reason why Britain got a referendum in the first place was because this coalition government wanted to scrap our human rights, and that really would have been impossible if we were in the EU, because it wouldn't be a question of having a referendum for us to leave the EU. Britain would have been booted out of the EU in no uncertain terms had this coalition government gone ahead regardless and scrapped human rights, because human rights are a fundamental foundation of EU public policy, and at the moment they're still a foundation of public policy in Britain. And unfortunately our human rights are being systematically denied by the corporate courts, because that is what they are right now, and it is really, really time to bring them to heel and to be asking some serious questions. And we don't want a public inquiry that's going to take years and years and years, because years and years and years are not going to help somebody like Sam Hallam, who has already lost years and years of his life through a severe miscarriage of justice. And when you look at the evidence, it is hard to understand how any judge could decide that, or jury even could decide that this man had been proven guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. Okay, so I'm not going to read you the whole article. We're going to go through parts of it and to explain the key points here. Okay, because basically what is going on now is people who've been victims of a miscarriage of justice and wrongfully prosecuted and then released on Court of Appeal, they are being told that before they are entitled to any compensation, he must now prove that he's innocent beyond reasonable doubt. So that is a total reversal of the law when it comes to victims of our justice system, and that is totally outrageous. Okay, so here we are. Sam Hallam denied compensation. He received no apology nor an acknowledgement of his innocence from the Court of Appeal. So why is he released then? Oh, because there wasn't enough evidence to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that he was innocent, that he was guilty. Oh, but apparently that doesn't mean that he's innocent then. Hallam outside the court yesterday, so this was like in May. It is shocking but nonetheless true that there is less state support for the victims of miscarriage of justice than for other guilty prisoners. You see, because people, normally guilty people who've served their time, when they leave prison they get all kinds of help. People like Sam Hallam, who were wrongfully convicted, get nothing. Absolutely nothing. So he's lost 7 years of his life. He's been traumatised. You know, in 2011 Citizens Advice, because this is it, the only resource for them is Citizens Advice. And they report one third of its clients found themselves homeless after they walked out of the Court of Appeal. No specialist psychological support available, despite well-evidenced research documenting the uniquely traumatic experience of being locked away for a crime that you did not commit. I mean, and that is the worst horror, isn't it? That any of us could imagine facing, being locked up in prison for years and years for a crime that you did not commit. So 4 years ago, the coalition government changed the scheme for compensation for the wrongfully convicted. And basically what they're saying is, you know, innocence as such is not a concept known to our criminal justice system, said Lady Hale in 2011, as the Supreme Court tussled with the meaning of a miscarriage of justice. We distinguish between the guilty and the not guilty. A person is guilty if the state can prove his guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Okay? Because it is assumed that the person is innocent. Alright, there may be such a weight of evidence that even before it gets to trial, it might be decided by police and other legal professionals that no, actually this person does need to be put in prison on the remand for a few months before trial, because actually there's such evidence there that strongly suggests if this person is allowed to remain at large in society, they pose a threat to the public and or themselves. So therefore, you know, the presumption of innocence still, if there's enough evidence there, will see somebody incarcerated even before it gets to trial. If at the trial the jury or the judge decides that no, actually there is reasonable doubt that this person really did commit this crime, a lot of the evidence is circumstantial or blah, or for whatever reason it's proven that the evidence actually doesn't hold up, then even after being held in prison on the remand for a few months, they still said no, sorry, yeah, you are free to go. So the coalition government did not find the lawfully distinction helpful. So its Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014, amending section 133 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988, restricts compensation to only those who can demonstrate their innocence beyond reasonable doubt. This is what I mean, a total reversal of the law. That those who have been wrongfully prosecuted and incarcerated are then expected to prove their innocence beyond reasonable doubt. So you've got somebody like Sam Hill, who was wrongfully convicted, and he spent years in prison trying to address that, having to go through solicitors, lawyers, while he's in prison. And then when he comes out of prison, he's got nothing at all, no help, after the Court of Appeal has found that actually, no, there wasn't enough evidence to prove you guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So therefore, you are free. We've quashed that sentence. Now, he's expected, in his debilitated state of mind and severely impoverished, to again go through years of legal actions, dealing with lawyers and solicitors and courts, in order to prove his innocence. And, you know, the only time that people are, the onus of proof of innocence is on suspects is, you know, according to things like child protection directives, which operate not just to protect children but also to prevent crimes against them. So, like, you know, when it comes to crimes against children, then really the police are required to not assume that the person is guilty, but they don't assume that the person is innocent either. The child protection directives operate on the principle, well, if there's smoke, go and check that there's no fire, because there could be other children at risk. This person might be a member of a child abuse gang, you see. So go and check. If there's smoke, go and check that there's no fire. So uniquely, when it comes to children, and that's to do with the power imbalance, isn't it, between adults and children. But in every other area of law, it is absolute innocent until proven guilty. And, you know, as far as the police approach goes, so there needs to be evidence before they will go and investigate. So, you know, a child's crime report might instigate investigations just of itself because the police want to make sure no other children are at risk and also to prevent crimes against other children. Whereas then if there's, say, something like other forms of evidence to support that, then obviously that then becomes the same as any other case, doesn't it? There's evidence here to suggest that a crime has been committed beyond a statement from an alleged witness victim, you see. So when we look at this, the horrific details of this case, you know, we find there was no forensic evidence linking Hallam to the killing, no CCTV footage, and there was a kind of shocking disclosure failure that we've become familiar with over recent months in connection to sexual assault cases. The police had Hallam's mobile phone containing photos of him at a pub with his father earlier in the evening, and even they spoke to 14 separate witnesses at a crowded murder scene who insisted Hallam was not there, including the intended victim of the murder. So, despite the overwhelming evidence of his innocence, the Ministry of Justice rejected his claim for compensation, and his case is now joined with that of Victor Neilson in this test case. Well, we don't know the results of this test case. Will we ever know the results of it? But, you know, why was it left down to the victims themselves now to try and address this when we've got a whole system of legal professionals who absolutely failed to stand up for British people's rights to justice? Because a nation without a civilised justice system, it isn't a civilised nation. This is an attack against our civil rights. It really is. We're not a civilised nation. We might as well be a banana republic, in the sense that police could concoct anything they want on the vaguest assertions. Somebody's arrested, imprisoned, found guilty, locked away. Oh, all right, yeah, we were wrong. Off you go. No, we're not giving you any compensation. You go and prove your innocence first. That is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. And, you know, don't forget, we've had here that his father knew. His father was directly involved in this. His father knew that his son was innocent of this crime. So obviously he's had to witness his son being locked up for life in prison, because that's the sentence for murder, isn't it? And so what happens? Hallam remains deeply damaged by his years in prison. His father took his own life while his son was in prison because, as Hallam's mother put it, he couldn't take it anymore. That is, what can I say? I am speechless. What does it do to the families of the people who are in prison? What does it do to a father who knows for sure his son is innocent because his son was with him in a pub? He knows his son is innocent. He has witnessed his son, in spite of the evidence, being locked away for murder. His faith in the British justice system has been shaken to the core. He now feels that he's got to sit and watch his son, his genuinely innocent son, rot in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. The man just can't live with it. He couldn't take it anymore. That is outrageous. That is outrageous. For a country like Britain that holds itself as one of the leading, most democratic, civilised nations on the planet. And we've got all these people talking about put Britain first. Well, tell me Tell me, what is Britain without human rights and a credible, viable justice system? What is Britain? It isn't the EU that has done this, is it? This is this coalition government who really, members of this government do need criminal charges bringing against them for what they've done to the British people. Especially under their policy of austerity, which does go against our human rights. I mean, I just can't believe it. Not only were Hallam and Neelan denied compensation, they received no apology nor an acknowledgement of their innocence from the Court of Appeal. In her judgment, Lady Justice Hallett suggested that Hallam, just a teenager at the time, was the architect of his own misfortune because of his dysfunctional lifestyle. When Hallam's QC, Henry Blaxland, attempted to invite the court to make a clear declaration of innocence, she cut him short. This was not a court of compensation, the judge chided the barrister. It is outrageous. It is outrageous that this is going on. So much for the presumption of innocence. The issue has a long and grubby history. No. As I say, it is beholden now upon the professional legal people of Britain. You need to get this sorted out, and quick. This idea that victims of a miscarriage of justice need to then spend years and years, after they've spent years in prison fighting for justice, their rights to freedom, and then while they're free with nowhere to live and no money, and even having lost their family members as a direct result, are then expected to spend another how many years fighting for their rights to compensation, fighting to prove that they're innocent. It is outrageous. And every British citizen worth their salt needs to be asking questions. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Write to your MPs. The people of Britain, you do not make your MPs work for you. It's never been easier. You get online, you write to them. Okay? Type in your postcode, up comes your MP. Contact them. Ask questions. Demand action. That's what they're paid to do. They're paid to represent us. And how are they going to represent us if we aren't communicating with them as a public? MPs don't necessarily know everything that's going on in this country. That would be impossible. It is up to us to inform them. This needs sorting out. And not just for this case. We don't want just his case. We want every case where there's been a miscarriage of justice and people have been released on prison because it's been proven that they were not proven guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. And therefore, they are innocent of any crime. And if people can't do that, you know, I mean, people think, yeah, I'm overpassionate. Well, do you know what? I'm not ashamed for being overpassionate on behalf of justice for people. Okay? I would like to see the same passion that the people who, on behalf of Brexit, want to put Britain first by attacking immigrants and Muslims. Okay, I'd like to see the same passion, not against them, but for his rights. I'd like to see passion on behalf of standing up for our rights, not passion standing against the people that threaten our rights. We don't need protests against. It's time that we demonstrated for. Because that's what delivers positive change. And like I say, you know, we're living in a country, they want to scrap our human rights. Well, his human rights have already been scrapped, haven't they? And to such a terrible degree, his father was driven to suicide. Well, that really is manslaughter, isn't it? It's manslaughter. Because what are people meant to do when they know for sure that a family member is innocent of a crime and they have to watch them rotting away in prison? My heart really, really goes out to that family, to all the people who have been wrongfully convicted in Britain, and who've been released and who have yet to receive any compensation, who are literally turfed out of prison and then just literally thrown on the streets. It's absolutely outrageous. Look at that. £46 discharge grant and a train ticket. These things are indicative of a society that is literally falling apart. And the sad fact is that, you know, Britain is now a widow, aren't we? The law is dead. The law is dead. We're a widow. Well, it's about time that, you know, we stood up now for our youth, and demanded that, sorry, these things are unacceptable. These things are unacceptable. And any lawyers, legal professionals who fail now to ask these questions, to ask the relevant questions, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you really a legal professional, or are you not, in fact, like this coalition government, nothing more than a corporate whore who are assisting in making the British people what? There to be exploited by corporate powers, who can do whatever they like to us, who can convict us on a whim and then expect us to prove our innocence when it is proven that it was they who were guilty of a miscarriage of justice. Because let's face it, if he's being asked to prove his innocence, then what does that mean? What? So the state isn't being asked to prove that they were guilty beyond all reasonable doubt of a false conviction? Is there reasonable doubt? You know, if he's being asked to prove his innocence, is there reasonable doubts then that the state didn't falsely convict him? If there's reasonable doubt that the state didn't convict him, on solid grounds of evidence that he was guilty, then how can he be released on appeal? You know, we're talking about a mad, disgusting twisting of the law that makes no sense. The law has become absurd. What can I say? What can I say? Wake up, people! Get active! And remove your head out of the fucking Brexit bucket, for goodness sake. Stand up for your human rights.